Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My biological dad passed away when I was young. He left me a trust fund, something to help me get started in life. My mom remarried pretty quickly after that, and along came my stepbrother. At first, I was excited to have a sibling, but that excitement didn't last long. My stepbrother turned into my worst nightmare. He'd hit me, push me around, and, well, he did things no one should ever do to another person, especially family. I tried telling my mom, but she always brushed it off. She dismissed my concerns, telling me he was just playing rough and that I shouldn't be so sensitive. Years went by and I thought things couldn't get worse. But then I found out my mom had been dipping into my trust fund. Not for me, oh no. She was using it to pay for my stepbrother's stuff. His car, his college tuition, even his vacations. When I confronted her about it, she acted like I was the one being unreasonable. She told me it was just money and that family helps family. She insisted that my stepbrother needed it more than I did. I argued back, reminding her that it was my money and that my dad had left it for me. But she just accused me of being selfish, claiming we were all family. The woman who was supposed to protect me was stealing from me to support my abuser. I knew I had to do something, so I reported it to the authorities. That's when things really hit the fan. For months, it was constant harassment. My mom and stepbrother would show up at my work, my apartment, everywhere. My mom would yell at me, accusing me of turning on my family and questioning how I could do this after everything they'd done for me. My stepbrother would threaten me, warning that I'd regret snitching on them. I was terrified. I had to move in with my half-brother. Different dad, same mom, just to feel safe. His family took me in without hesitation. My half-brother reassured me, telling me I could stay as long as I needed and that they had my back. Then, out of nowhere, my stepbrother got arrested. Turns out he kidnapped his cousin's baby. I don't know what he was thinking, but it got him off my back for a while. Just when I thought things were calming down, I got the call. My mom had been arrested for tax fraud and grand larceny. The investigators had finally gathered enough evidence. I thought I'd feel sad or conflicted, but all I felt was relief. It was over. They couldn't hurt me anymore. Of course, my mom didn't see it that way. She called me from jail, leaving a voicemail that made my blood boil. She demanded that I drop the charges immediately, pulling the "I'm your mother" card and insisting I couldn't do this to her. When I actually picked up her second call, she changed her tune. She started pleading with me, calling me sweetie, and begging me not to abandon her. She told me she was all alone in there and that she needed me. I simply said bye and hung up. I hung up and blocked her number. It felt good to finally stand up for myself. Now my aunts, who I barely know, have been blowing up my phone and email. They're trying to guilt me into helping my mom, but I'm not having it. Block, delete, repeat. My half-brother encouraged me, telling me I was doing the right thing and not to let them get to me. He's right. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. I'm staying with my half-brother and his family, looking at a house for sale in their neighborhood. I'm getting a restraining order, changing my social security number, doing everything I can to start fresh. I know it's not over. I might have to testify, and who knows what other drama my mom and stepbrother might try to stir up. But for now, I'm enjoying the peace. I'm free from their abuse, their manipulation, and their entitlement. For the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving, I'm ready to start living. After years of service, including a tough deployment in Afghanistan, I was back home and attending a local veterans event. It was supposed to be a relaxing day, a chance to connect with fellow soldiers and share our experiences. The event was held in a community center, with various booths set up for veterans services and local businesses showing their support. I was standing near a refreshment table, chatting with some of my old buddies from my unit, when I noticed a woman and her son approaching us. At first, I didn't think much of it. Lots of civilians came to these events to show their appreciation or learn more about military life. But as they got closer, I could see the woman eyeing the combat patches on our uniforms. She marched up to us, dragging her son along, who looked to be about 10 years old and clearly uncomfortable with his mother's behavior. The woman introduced herself and her son, explaining that the boy was a big fan of the military and collected patches and badges. I politely responded, expressing appreciation for the young boy's interest in military service. The woman then asked if we could give her son one of our combat patches from our sleeves. I was taken aback. These weren't just decorations, they were symbols of our service and sacrifice. I apologized and explained that we couldn't give away our patches as they were part of our uniform and had special meaning to us. The woman's face immediately twisted into a scowl. She became angry, insisting it was just a piece of cloth and that her son deserved it more than we did because he had been studying military history for years. I tried to remain calm and explain further. I acknowledged her son's interest but emphasized that these patches represented our actual combat experience and weren't souvenirs to be handed out. That's when things took a turn for the worse. Without warning, the woman lunged forward and grabbed me by the throat. Her grip was surprisingly strong, and I was so shocked I didn't immediately react. She yelled at me, calling me an ungrateful brat, and claiming her taxes paid my salary. She demanded I give her son the stupid patch as the least I could do. My buddies immediately stepped in, trying to pry her hands off me. One of them shouted at the woman to let go of me, while another called for the military police. The woman's son looked mortified, shrinking back from the scene his mother was causing. As I struggled to breathe, I saw a group of officers rushing towards us from across the room. They must have noticed the commotion. One of them demanded to know what was happening. The woman finally released me, spinning around to face the approaching officers. I coughed and rubbed my throat. The woman tried to defend herself, accusing us of being rude and unpatriotic for not giving her son a patch. The lead officer, a stern-looking colonel, surveyed the scene. He asked the woman if she had just assaulted me. She denied it, claiming she had barely touched me and suggesting that as a soldier, I should be tougher. The colonel's face hardened. He informed her that he had witnessed her with her hands on my throat, explaining that it was assault and a serious offense. He also pointed out the disrespect she was showing to combat veterans. The woman tried to interrupt, but the colonel cut her off. He pointed out that her son looked embarrassed and terrified by her behavior. He explained that combat patches were earned through service and sacrifice, not handed out like party favors. The woman started to sputter, realizing she was in real trouble. The colonel ordered his officers to escort the woman out of the building, stating that they would contact local authorities to press charges. As the MPs moved to take the woman away, she began shouting and causing an even bigger scene, threatening to sue everyone. Her son, red-faced and near tears, quietly apologized to us as another officer gently led him away to wait for his father to pick him up. The colonel turned to me with concern, asking if I was all right or needed medical attention. I assured him I was okay, just a bit shaken up. He apologized for what had happened and promised they would follow up on the incident, emphasizing that such behavior was unacceptable, especially towards combat veterans. As the commotion died down and the event slowly returned to normal, my buddies and I were left to process what had just happened. The woman was charged with assault and banned from all future military events in the area. We'd faced danger in combat zones, but somehow this encounter with an entitled civilian had caught us completely off guard. My wife and I found this perfect house on the corner of two streets, one part of a fancy homeowners association neighborhood and the other just a regular street. When we first moved in, I figured it'd be no big deal to join their homeowners association. So I went to their office, all smiles, ready to pay whatever fees they wanted. I introduced myself as the new neighbor on the corner and expressed my hope to join the homeowners association so my kids could use the pool and playground. The association representative apologized and explained that my house wasn't part of their neighborhood, so they couldn't allow me to join. I pointed out that we were right across the street and asked if we could work something out. The representative said their rules were clear and only houses within their designated area could be members, with no exceptions. I left feeling pretty frustrated. To make our yard more enjoyable for the kids, I decided to plant a mulberry tree right on the corner of our property. It grew quickly, and soon my children were climbing it, swinging from its branches and gobbling up berries by the handful. It became the centerpiece of our outdoor fun. But of course, the homeowners association couldn't let us have nice things. One day, a woman in a crisp suit showed up at my door. The woman introduced herself as being from the homeowners association. She informed me that they had noticed my tree's branches were hanging too low over their street, which violated their regulations. I expressed my confusion, pointing out that the tree wasn't even in their neighborhood. She explained that it was affecting the aesthetic of their community entrance and insisted I needed to trim it back immediately. I retorted that if they wanted to dictate what I do with my property, they should let my kids use their pool. The woman reiterated that it was impossible because we weren't members. I told her that in that case, they'd have to deal with my tree. I shut the door in her face. A few weeks later, I came home to find one of the main branches of our beloved tree hacked off. The one that stretched over their precious street was gone, leaving an ugly scar on the trunk. I was livid. I stormed over to the homeowners association office, demanding answers. I angrily asked who had cut my tree, calling it destruction of private property. The association representative claimed they had received no reports of such an incident and suggested it might have been a city worker doing routine maintenance. I accused them of lying. The representative coldly said they couldn't help me without any evidence and dismissed me. I left fuming, but an idea was already forming in my mind. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. I headed straight to the hardware store and loaded up on PVC pipes, Christmas lights, and rope. Over the next few days, I worked tirelessly to recreate the missing branch. It wasn't pretty, far from it. I used old branches from the woods to prop it up, making it look like some kind of Frankenstein's monster of a tree limb. Then, I wrapped the whole thing in the brightest, gaudiest Christmas lights I could find. And I didn't stop there. I covered the entire tree in lights, creating a blinding spectacle that could probably be seen from space. It was May. Christmas was months away, but my tree was lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. It didn't take long for the complaints to start rolling in. Letters appeared in my mailbox, which I promptly tossed in the trash. Then came the personal visits. A woman who I mentally dubbed Karen approached me about my tree decoration. She called it an eyesore and expressed concern about its impact on property values, given its location at the entrance to their neighborhood. I sarcastically replied about the branch that had mysteriously disappeared, claiming I was just trying to restore it to its former glory. Karen insisted that it was ridiculous and demanded I take it down immediately. I rudely told her I didn't remember asking for her opinion and suggested she mind her own business, using some colorful language. She threatened to take the matter up with their lawyers, to which I cockily replied that there was no law against ugly Christmas decorations. They huffed and puffed, but in the end, they didn't touch my masterpiece. I kept those lights blazing until just before the actual Christmas season. As the years went by, my kids grew up and moved out, but they still come back every spring to gather berries from our mulberry tree. I'm living off the grid in a small apartment that practically no one knows about. It's been a few years since I made this decision, and it wasn't an easy one. You see, I used to work as a financial advisor for some pretty high-profile clients. One day, I stumbled upon some suspicious transactions that reeked of money laundering. Being the naive idealist I was, I reported it to my superiors. Big mistake. Instead of addressing the issue, they tried to silence me. Threats started pouring in, and I realized I was in way over my head. That's when I decided to disappear. I quit my job, sold my house, and moved to this tiny apartment complex where no one knew me. I made sure to keep my digital footprint minimal and had all my mail and packages sent to my sister's place. It wasn't ideal, but it kept me safe. Everything was going smoothly until a few months ago when this new neighbor moved in. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then strange things started happening. I began receiving mail and package notifications for someone I didn't know. It was annoying, but I figured it was just a mix-up that would sort itself out. The first time it happened, I went to the apartment office to clear things up, I explained to the office manager that I had been getting mail and package notifications for someone else, even though I didn't have a locker subscription since I don't get deliveries here. The manager asked for more details, so I told them it was for the new tenant 3 doors down from me. When the manager asked if I had tried talking to my neighbor about it, I admitted I hadn't yet, as I wanted to check with the office first. The manager made a note of it and suggested I let my neighbor know about the mix-up, so I did. I went to my neighbor's apartment and knocked on the door. I introduced myself as living 3 doors down and explained that I had been getting his mail and package notifications by mistake. He seemed surprised and said it was weird. I asked him to please update his address with the post office and his online accounts. He agreed to take care of it, but he didn't. Then came the packages. I started getting notifications about fees I had to pay to pick up packages that weren't even mine. I marched back to the office. I told the manager that I wasn't going to pay fees for packages that weren't mine and insisted that this had to stop. The manager said they understood but couldn't do much if the sender had the wrong address. This went on for months. I was at my wit's end. And then today happened. I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, there was a delivery driver holding a bag of sandwiches. The driver said it was a food delivery for my neighbor. I explained that it wasn't for me and that my neighbor lived 3 doors down. The driver insisted that this was the address on the order. Sighing, I reluctantly agreed to take it. I looked at the bag. Multiple sandwiches from an expensive chain, all with my neighbor's name but my address. An hour passed and he didn't show up looking for his food. That's when I made my decision. I opened the bag and took out a sandwich. A week later, there was a furious knock on my door. I opened it to find my neighbor, red-faced and angry. He demanded to know if I had received his sandwich delivery last week. I confirmed that I had gotten the delivery with my address on it. When he asked where it was and said he'd been trying to track it down, I simply told him I ate it all. He was shocked and outraged, exclaiming that it was his food. I pointed out that it was delivered to my address and reminded him that I had asked him countless times to update his information, which he didn't do. So I assumed anything delivered to my address was meant for me. He threatened to report me, but I challenged him to go ahead, suggesting he should also report himself for using someone else's address without permission. I added that the office would probably love to hear about that. He took off, sputtering threats. The very next day, I saw him at the office filling out change of address forms. And just like that, the delivery stopped. I may be in hiding, but I'm not a pushover. Sometimes you have to fight entitlement with a taste of its own medicine, or in this case, with its own sandwiches. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.